welcome to another episode of Nerds for Life Supercoach. I'm your host Peter. I know I'm filming a little late this week. I had some other commitments. I helped out with the Supercoach co-captains this week as well, so I ran a little bit out of time. But I am still going to pump out a weekly episode a few hours before we kick this round off. We've got a really long round coming up, obviously Anzac Day weekend, so we've got a game on Wednesday night, 2 games Thursday, a game Friday, and then obviously Saturday and Sunday is as per normal. So we've got a big round of footy. It means that it's going to be hard to downgrade. But luckily for us, one of our main downgrade targets were dropped from the Wednesday games. I'll go into that a little bit more. Before I do, standard kickoff, let's make sure to subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, whatever you're listening to this or watching this on, but also follow us on our Twitter, our Facebook, our TikTok, our Instagram, because we do make regular posts. I actually don't post too much on Instagram, but you can still follow me there. It's Nerds for Life, so that's the number 4. So Nerds, number 4, Life Supercoach, or Nerds for Life SC if you're on Twitter. And you can catch all of our content, all the news there, because I do post quite a bit, and I promise you some of it is okay. Now, the weekly winner, this is the weekly group winner that you can all still get involved in, is Ugly Ducklings by Jamie, and he scored a whopping 2,146. And he took, I'm pretty sure from what I can see, he took Bont's 125. It was a pretty ordinary week, actually. All the players that we thought were going to go massive 150s just didn't. I personally didn't have great scores. I had a really good week. I actually went up 9,000 spots, which I have been, after my horrid start to round 1. Round 1, I've worked out this year, round 1 was my worst start to a season ever on the current app that I have. So I started playing again a few years ago, and it was my worst start ever, which is actually worse than my first ever season playing Supercoach. That's how bad I started the year. But now, I'm pretty much at the 10k mark. So I'm actually kind of happy that I've been able to recover so quickly. I know, right? But yeah, no, this is definitely the worst start to a season, but I've really made ground quick. And I've actually not burnt through my boosts, haven't burnt through all my trades. It's been okay. Like 24 left, I'm alright with this, and I think my team is still looking pretty decent. I just had a lot of injuries that happened pretty much off the bat, and anyway, I'm recovering and I feel pretty good about it. I actually had a decent week, but my best scorer was a Nick Dagos, 133 for the round, which is kind of a bit meh when you think about it, but he was my best scorer for the week. Roberts was great, Rao was great, Butters were great, Bont were great, Marshall was fucking putrid. I love the fact that I traded out Brodie Grundy for Rowan Marshall. You know, my whole plan was to trade out Grundy just before his round 6 bye and make sure that I had English and Marshall for round 6. And when everyone else had Gawn or Grundy, right, I was going to just pump out these massive scores. And then English does 114, which is decent, and Marshall just forgets to rock up. So my plan didn't work out. I still stand by it. I think it was a good strategy. It just didn't work out the way I would have liked. But we have a big episode today. I'm going to pump through it a little bit faster than usual, just because I'm running out of time. So we've had teams already announced for the Wednesday game, so I'll go into that. Which primos to trade in? We've got the questions that you guys have asked me over social media, my moves this week, and also rookies that you could potentially downgrade to. So let's kick it off to some of the trade-in options this week. Now, Sam Walsh. We know who Sam Walsh is. Sam Walsh is an absolute star when he is fit and firing. Has started the year off in incredible form and is the number 1 traded in player this week. He's had almost 29,000 coaches trade him in. He's 576k, so this is probably going to be the cheapest that we do get him. He's got a decent record against Geelong as well. But I want to point out that there is risk associated with bringing in someone like Sam Walsh. I brought him in last year, and I just want to show you. He missed the first 5 games last year, first 4 games, Then he came back and he pumped out 104, 130, 117, 106, 117. It was great, right? I brought him in after his second game of 130 against the Eagles, and I thought, you know what, that's great. I've got 3 games of 100 plus. Nice. Then he pumps out a 92, and then 105. I'm like, okay, it's still pretty good. He's averaging 110. But this is where it nosedived. This is where his back started to flare up a little bit. And Carlton's midfield were all fit and ready. So you had Kennedy, you had, I don't know why Kennedy was the first Carlton midfielder that came to mind, but you had Kennedy, you had Chera, you had Hewitt, you had Cripps, and suddenly Walsh's numbers started to decline a little bit. 72, 93, 108 by, then 99, 118, 87, 109, and then didn't play for 4 weeks before scoring a 90 upon return. He had a great final series, but that didn't count towards our Supercoach scores. His second half of the year was the reason I did not come home strong last year. It was one of the reasons. I still had a decent finish, but watching him pump out a 72 or a 90, and then he brought his average from 110 in round 11 all the way down to 103, and suddenly I think I paid 600k for this guy. And I don't know, for me, I'm not picking him. I'm fading him purely because, and you know what? Who knows? There's risk associated with it. You might get the Sam Walsh. I think it was 2021. He had that huge year. I think it was 2021. I'm just gonna check that now. Now I'm curious. 2021. Yeah, he averaged 117 for the season in 2021. In 2022, he averaged 111. So we've seen that this guy can do it. We've seen that he can do this. We know that he can do it. But with that back flaring up, I just think that there's going to be a period of time where he does get tired, and maybe he's not that 110, 115 averaging midfielder. Maybe he drops to 105. And for me, I rather spend that 576k elsewhere. I'm actually spending up by 50k on a player that, now I'm going to say it, and he's probably going to have a 12-week hamstring awareness, but on a player that doesn't have that history of injury issues. He has also had a longer period of time of being that 110 plus guy, and also is their best midfielder. There won't be any rotation. There might be a tag, but he's still their best midfielder, and I'm going elsewhere purely because of that. I understand why people want to pick Walsh. I really do, but there is risk associated with it. And for me, I rather pay up a little bit extra to avoid that, or at least try to avoid that risk. I think the paying extra to avoid that is better for me. I understand why you're doing it. This is the week to do it. So if you're going to jump on Sam Walsh, round 7 is the week, but not for me. Just personally. Personally, not for me. I guarantee you I've got a few questions about that. The next guy I want to talk about is Jordan Dawson. Now, Dawson scored a whopping 168 against Essendon. He looked back. He was back, but it was also his first 100 score. Okay, he's dropped down to a mere 533,000 price. His projected score is 105 and his break even is 73. So he's most likely going to hit that even if he has a shit game. Okay, he's playing North Melbourne. Okay, he's going to ton up. We know this. But the thing that I just want to, the reason I'm not jumping on Dawson just yet, I actually think Dawson is a buy for next week if he pumps out another 110 plus. The reason being is because Crouch is most likely back this week, he has been affecting Dawson's scores this season. It's clear that he has been affected. It's not only his disposal efficiency and his average form, it's Matt Crouch has been affecting his scores. So Crouch comes back into the side this week. So we get to see Adelaide's midfield with Crouch back and what Dawson does at that time. We also get to see if he can turn up again 2 weeks in a row. We know that he can. History says that he can. But this year is very different. If he does it again, he goes 110. Or even if he goes 120, he's only going to go up about 20k. So then you're going to be able to pick him up at 150, 155k next week. That's still a steal. That is a steal for a guy of this capability. I would rather see him ton up 2 weeks in a row and then I jump on him because he's got an amazing record. A lot of his next few games are at Adelaide. So all the way up to his bye, I think this is the only game. No, this is at Adelaide Oval as well. Then you've got Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. Then you've got Brisbane at the G. Then you've got Collingwood at the MCG. Then Adelaide Oval, West Coast, MCG, Hawthorn, then Richmond, Adelaide Oval, Sydney, Adelaide Oval, and then you've got his bye. So and then after that, he's got a couple of Adelaide games as well. So that's the thing. So his draw is actually pretty good. For me, he is a watch for one more week. I would actually prefer to pick Sam Walsh ahead of Dawson. I think that this is the guy that everyone wanted to trade out only a fortnight ago, and now everyone wants to trade him in. I don't like it personally. I want to see, was that a fluke game, or can he back it up against North Melbourne? And I don't mean a flat 100. I want to see him absolutely destroy North Melbourne before I even consider it. But he is definitely a watch, and I think maybe just wait a week. He's still going to be at an amazing price next week, and then you can pick him up next week. And then after that, you've got 2 weeks worth of data, and you feel a little bit more confident in your trade. The other one I want to talk about is Jack Macrae. Now, isn't being jumped on, and unfortunately, Bevo is his coach. He's played 4 games this year. His first game was a 59. I think he was substitute that week, though. The next game was a 37, and I believe that there was a sub-vest involved as well. I don't recall, but he played up forward. It wasn't really until round 5 that he started to get CBAs, and he scored an 87 against Essendon. It was okay, and then he was fully unleashed in their midfield in round 6 against the Saints, and he scored 123. Now, he's got forward status, which makes him incredibly juicy. Jack Macrae's been in my side basically every year since I've been playing Supercoach again. So I'm probably going to have him again. He's a top 6 forward. Even at his current form, he's a top 6 forward. But the thing that I want to see is that Libba didn't play and Sanders spent most of the day on the bench as the sub. Sanders will not spend every week as the sub, and Libba is returning. I want to see Jack Macrae's role with their full midfield, because Bevo is someone that I would like to avoid for the rest of the year as much as I can. He still averaged just under 100 last year as a forward, as that half forward rotating into the midfield. But and I brought him in after he had those back-to-back 145s last year, where he went round 10, round 11, 145, and I'm like, oh, awesome. I brought him in, scored a couple of really good games, and then it really dropped off after that. So just be aware that Bevo likes to move the magnets around, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. And you've got a guy like Jack Macrae, who unfortunately is one of the ones that gets moved around, and it does affect his Supercoach scoring. I'm waiting another week because I believe that you can pick him up. I actually think that he is probably the guy that I will bring in next week, to be honest. I can actually go, I believe that I can go one trade up to him. Because I think Cadman makes enough money this week to then, and I've got enough cash in the bank to be able to potentially go Cadman straight to Jack Macrae, and then I only have to do one trade for the week, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I might do that personally. I might do that because he's got Freo this week, who's got a decent record against, but then he's got Hawthorn. He won't be tagged in this game if he plays midfield. It won't be him. It'll be someone else. It will not be him. And then he's got Richmond, so his draw's actually kind of good as well. His break even is 64. He will likely hit that, especially if he plays midfield. But he's only going to go up, another 10 to 20k, which makes him, 500k flat? That's still a great price for a top 6 forward in his line. So I'm probably going to wait a week for him myself. But the other guy that I'm really keen on next week, and I'm not going to touch on it too much just because I want to talk about him next week, is Tom Stewart. So, look, I know that I've got my eyes on Dawson and Macrae, but Stewart is someone else. And I feel like all 3 of those guys are going to be prime next week targets. And I'll explain why a little bit. But he misses this week out of concussion, but he's got a huge break even of 137. You could probably wait until round 9 for Stewart. You could do that, just to make sure that he's, shaking off the concussion issues. But he's been plummeting in price. You might get him for about 5.20, 5.10 the week after. Yeah, maybe he's more around 9 weight. But yeah, you can get Tom Stewart very cheap very soon. So do keep an eye on him. He's going to be very juicy in a couple of weeks. Now, I want to go into the rookies that we're trading down to. These are the guys that we're trading down to after a bunch of rookies have made the maximum amount of money. Now, I know that some people are talking about holding Williams and Dan Brosio and the likes of those guys, and Sanders. But I think for me, Sanders is a trade out. He has been a sub risk most of the year. You can't trust Bevo. His break even is way too high, and he lost me money because I didn't have anyone that I wanted to. I didn't want to go early on anyone last week, and I'm glad I didn't, because if I did go early, it would have been on my call-off. I didn't want to go early on anyone, and I decided to just hold him and lose the 15k, which sucks. But he still made 110k for us, for anyone that held him, so you can't be too upset with that. And he was a pretty decent on-field option, except for the games that he was sub, which were round 1, round 5, and round 6, where he had the sub-vest affected games. There will be games where he's not the sub, and he will pump out 100 plus scores. I'm convinced. He's got Hawthorn and Richmond coming up, and I'm convinced that he can do that and probably reset his break even. But then what? And does he do that? Because I can't trust Bevo anymore. So I personally will be trading him out this week. Just bank the cash. There are some rookie options that we can trade down to. I think the best one is a Hugo Garcia. He's got a break-even of negative 45 and a projection of 36, so he'll smash that. He's going to go up a decent amount of cash. He scored a 43 and a 69. That 43, do remember, was a sub game. So he actually came onto the ground and still scored a 43. Had a huge... That's actually a decent score, considering he only played less than half the game. I think he only played about 40% of the game, something like that, 45% of the game. He scored a 43. So the amount of points that he's scoring per minute is actually quite high. He had more CBAs than Seb Ross last week. He was the second highest CBA attendee from their midfield, and the week before, likewise as well, since coming onto the ground. So they do rate the kid. If he does play against Port Adelaide, he also has a decent run after that against North Melbourne and Hawthorn, who we could see some decent spike scores from. So if he stays in the team for the next 3 weeks, we should be able to see a decent amount of cash be generated from him. Probably about 100k. He's also got DDP. So for me, he's probably the safest bet for a bring-in target this week. This is why I'm bringing him in. Sorry, I'm just going to have a bit of water here. I've been crapping on too much. And he's probably the only one that I could confidently say will be a good trade-in target. And then you've got Biggie Newen, who I didn't actually want to bring in. Biggie is someone that a lot of people went early on, and I'm glad I did not. He's got a negative 46 break even. He looks okay. He's 123k. Had a great game against Geelong. Scored an 89. And then he had a shit game against Hawthorn. I watched that game. He was beaten comfortably by Marbia Chol. And Marbia Chol's not the best forward in the competition. So he could be dropped this week. He genuinely could be dropped this week. I need to bring in a rookie in order to free up some cash to make the trade that I want. So I'm going with Biggie purely because McAuliffe was dropped. And we'll go into that a little bit later on. The other options this week are Sellers, who... this is actually quite funny. This is Tyler Sellers, 102k, okay? Has scored a 3 and a 6. Okay? Alright. He's playing. But his break-even's 49. His projected scores are 13, and he's going to apparently lose money, but he can't because he's already at the minimum price. So I would not be bringing in a Tyler Sellers. I suppose he's on his bubble, though, if you want to lose money. you could do it. The other one I would actually go to if Biggie is dropped is a Drury. I think we went 12 months early on him because he actually looked okay. He's got a negative 46 break even as well. He's the same price. He's a forward as well. So he's the same as Newen. So if Newen's dropped, I can go Drury very quickly. He scored a 78 against Geelong. He actually looked pretty good that day. I watched that game. He looked good. Then he scored a 39 against Hawthorn. Did not look great. He's a forward pocket for North Melbourne. So his scores aren't going to be amazing. But he could be a decent burn. He's in 1.2% of teams. That surprises me. He's gone up 1% over the last week. Interesting. But I don't love the pick, but he's probably the third best option. So if McCall has been dropped, if Newen's dropped, then I'm just going to go Drury because I just need to make some cash. I just want someone playing on my bench personally. I'm not looking for his on-field scores. My bench is looking kind of thin at the moment, which is very annoying. But my on-field is looking okay, so I'm okay with this. I'm okay with it. The other one is Will Hamill. Hasn't been scoring great. He's at a kind of elevated price. I probably wouldn't be going Hamill. There's actually, now with DDP, we've got so many defensive options. Reed should be back soon. Roberts can be moved. He's not going to be dropping in price anytime soon. Will Graham, Closey, those guys can go into defense as well. We've got cover with DDP as Martin, Holmes, Zagos, for example, are all. And then if you've got Elliot Yeo, I believe he's still got. Does he still have DDP? I think he's still got DDP as well. I'm just going to look that up. Yeah, he does. So anyone that's got those sort of players, they've got a lot of flexibility. So I would just not go Hamill because I don't think he's going to make us a lot of money. Riley Garcia is the other one that a lot of people are bringing in. 6,000 coaches have brought him in. Don't go early. I went early on one player this year purely because it was round 2 and I had a bunch of injuries and I had to do it. I would not be going early on a player. If you go early on a player, you will get into the habit of doing it. So people that went early on someone like Newen and McAuliffe last week now want to trade down and have to go early on someone like Garcia. And McAuliffe's already been dropped and Newen could potentially be dropped too, and then your cash generation on your bench is just stunted. I wouldn't be going early on a player, just don't do it. I went early on Closey, that is the player that I went early on. Not round 2, sorry, 2 weeks ago. His position looked great, his form looked fantastic. I went early on him just purely because of that. I took the risk, why not? But I wouldn't be doing it again, and it was only because his scoring was so outstanding that I did that. But I wouldn't be doing it again, especially on a forward, and then especially actually on a Dogs player. I just would not be doing it. He scored an 82 last week. It was pretty decent. How's his scoring been in the past? 2020 didn't play a game. 2021 played 9 games for a 49% average. 2022 he played 6 games for a 42% average. 2023 played 3 games for a 28% average. This is his best game by far. Okay, he's been in the system for a while. I am probably going to pick him next week as a trade down target, but he's got a really big injury history, a huge injury problem. Why would you bring in a guy a week early when he could get injured this week? And it's a serious risk. So it's a no, massive X for me. Next week, lock him in. That's fine, but don't bring him in this week. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Also, who you're trading out? Guys like Darcy and Cadman, Berry still have plenty of money to make. So if you're trading one of them out for a guy that's going early, no, I don't like that at all. Now, let's go into my trades for the week. I'm bringing in Christian Petrarca. He has had a decent run. So he scored 108, 119, 146, 97, but Port Adelaide are a pretty good midfield. Then 140 before going at 59 against Brisbane. But from reports, according to SCN, there was the flu going around Melbourne before that game. So I reckon he was one of the guys that were affected by that. There weren't any names, but I have a feeling it was probably him. He was averaging 122 at that point. He's still averaging 111. He's about to play the Tigers, who honestly think he could score. I think he could hit his break even on 157 or get close to it. And even if he doesn't, he's not going to drop that much in cash, because if he goes 120, let's say he has an average game and he goes 120, even if he goes 112, which is projected score, which I think is unders to what he's going to do this week, he is only going to lose 20k. He's still going to be above 600. And I'd rather bring him in for the big score, the potential big score this week, than save 20k next week. Like, for me, I'm trading up to Petrarca, and I told you why I'm not going Walsh or Dawson, and I'm choosing Petrarca because I just think that it's a safer pick. I think the upside's there. I think that he is a walk-in best 8 midfielder. And I didn't get to own him last year because I missed out. So I'm going to get him this year. I'm going to get him this week, and I'm pretty happy. My top 6 midfielders look strong at the moment. I'm happy with that top 6, and I'm probably going to keep that top 6 for a while. And eventually move, obviously, Heaney into the forward line. But just structurally right now, this is what I'm going with, because, you know, Reid is not playing this week, which we'll go into in a minute. He's also got Geelong, who's got a great record against, and Carlton, who he has a good record against despite them being a pretty hard midfield. Then he's got West Coast. I just think this is the week to bring him in. For me, I think this is it, because I don't think he's going to get any cheaper than this. And if he does, it's only going to be a little bit cheaper, and you're going to miss out on the big scores between now and then. And he actually has a decent record coming off a bye too. So I went back over his last 4 years, and he tends to ton up. So I'm okay with this pick. And then I'm obviously bringing in Hugo Garcia and Biggie Nguyen as the trade down targets. I've traded out guys like Massimo and Brosio, who I think is kind of peaking. He was subbed out. Does this mean he's going to be subbed out more often? Maybe. But I just think that he's going to make a little bit more money. But for me, I'd rather have Christian Petrarca than maybe the 50k that Ambrosio makes me over the next few weeks. I've traded out Zach Williams because I don't want... I hurt Achilles, and I don't want to deal with that again. Great player, but unfortunately, he's done his job. He's made me 100k. He's probably going to make 50k as well. Same sort of deal. They're both around about the same sort of level player, and they're both around the same sort of level in the sense that they're going to make that much money over the next few weeks. If I was to keep one of them, it might be even a Williams, because they've still got Sard and McGovern out, so that means that his scoring on field should be pretty decent. But for me, with all those DDP changes, I just moved Nick Martin, Holmes, and Roberts into my backline. So I don't need Williams and Ambrosio scores anymore. I just don't need them. So for me, I always planned on moving those 3 into defence. Originally, I actually planned on moving 4 players into defence, but McKercher obviously didn't work out. I was always going to move those 3 guys into defence and then start beefing up my midfield. And over the last couple of weeks, I've brought in guys like Sarong and Petrarca, because that was the plan. The plan was to get the midfielders that were at great prices, and then move them into defence because of their roles, and then start to get those premium mids in. And that's what I'm doing this week. I'm sticking to that plan. I like my side with Petrarca in there. I could see him going massive against the Tigers, and he's going to be my vice-captain as well, which is now a great segue into captaincy. You know, this is it. Vice-captain and captain choices. Let's talk AFL.com.au. I just want to bring up the matches, the fixture. We've got Richmond versus Melbourne on the Wednesday night, which is tonight, and my number 1 pick is obviously Christian Petrarca. If you've got balls, maybe an Oliver, and but no, please don't do that. Oliver actually going to be pretty juicy pretty soon too, but I don't know, his form's kind of meh. I'm looking at him for 2025. And then if you've got Max Gawn and you can't get Christian Petrarca, I don't mind Max Gawn in this game, but Nank is actually a pretty restrictive ruckman. He's not a bad ruckman, and people do forget that. I just want to see what his last few scores... Whoa, he scored 174 in round 20, but did Nankervis play that game? I just want to see, did Nankervis play that game? Because I don't... Surely he did not. Surely Nankervis did not play round 20. He didn't. Okay, so Max Gawn did not score 174 against Nankervis. Okay, he scored 174 against probably Soldo or Ryan or something. Let's take a look. When did Nankervis play last year in round 20? I just want to... Sorry, not Nankervis. Soldo. Yeah, it was Soldo. Yeah, she scored 128 on Gawn as well. Not bad. But no. So Max Gawn did not score 174 against Nankervis. He actually, the last time he played Nankervis, he scored a whopping 98. So just take that into consideration. Okay? When you pick your vice captain, just remember the last time he went against his opponent, he scored a 98, not a 174. I still like the pick. I still like going someone early in the round. So if you do have Gawn, I understand he's in good form. But for me, I would be steering... I don't know. If you've got him, go for it. I don't mind it. But I think the next game is more juicy. If you've got a Merritt or if you've got a Dacos, so Thursday, 3:20 p.m, Anzac Day, the MCG. If you've got a Merritt or a Dacos, I prefer them over Gawn this week. I don't have a Merritt. I do have Dacos, but I prefer Petrarca in the previous game. So I'm going to be going with Track personally. But if you've got Merritt or Dacos and you don't have a Track and you don't have a Gawn, or even if you do have a Gawn, I would prefer to pick one of them. Merritt, I believe, has a decent record against Collingwood. Yeah, he does. 133, 133, and 123. So I just want to put that out there. Merritt has a great record against the Pies. Then you've got Dacos. Dacos is... I just brought up the wrong Dacos. I just brought up Josh Dacos. If you want a VC Josh Dacos, you could, I suppose. But Nick Dacos scored 145 last year against them during Anzac Day. So what is Josh Dacos's? Don't pick Josh Dacos. 78, 174. That's not fantastic. I love Josh Dacos. Don't get me wrong. He's one of my favourite Collingwood players. Just not for a captain pick. Definitely not for a captain pick. But you could go either one of those and probably be pretty happy. Then you've got the Giants take on Brisbane. Isn't it Manuka Oval in Canberra? I wouldn't be captaining or vice captaining anyone in this game. At all. Neil has a decent record against the Giants. Green doesn't really against Brisbane. And then when you've got your vice captain, like you've got four genuine vice captain picks on the Wednesday and Thursday, I wouldn't be going for anyone from this game at all. Friday, you've got Port Adelaide versus Kilda. You could go Butters, but Butters is someone that could cop a tag in this game. But then again, Rosie could cop a tags. It'll probably be one of the two that do. For non-Butters owners, I'm sure that they're hoping that it's Butters that cops the tag. For non-Rosie owners, like myself, I hope it's Rosie, so then I can pick up Rosie later on in the year. So for cheap, because he's dropping in price as well. So I don't like anyone from this game personally. And I'll be staying clear from it, purely because Butters could seriously cop a tag in this game. I think Steele has a decent record against Port from memory. He does. So you could go Steele if you've got Steele. Adelaide versus North Melbourne. Basically, anyone from Adelaide's midfield should be a decent pick. If you've still got Dawson, just go Dawson. As a vice captain, but again, if you've got guys in the earlier games, do go for the guys in the earlier games. But if you, for some reason, don't have Dacos, Merritt, Gawn, Petrarca, Butters, then I suppose you could go with Dawson. Then Cats, Carlton. If you want to risk it all, I suppose you could put the VC on. If you want to put the VC on Walsh, if you're bringing him in this week, I don't mind it. He's probably the only one that I would pick from that game. Freo versus the Dogs. The Bont has a really good record against the Dockers. Let's see. I wouldn't go English purely because of the dual ruck situation they have. He hasn't been performing well against dual rucks this year. So I don't want to pick English purely because of that. But Bont has gone 114, 182, and 100 against Fremantle in his last 3 games. So I really like this game. But, and then Sarong is another one that he's gone 138, 130, 103. So I really like Sarong in this game. So if you have to put a VC on anyone on Saturday, it would probably be Sarong for me and Bont. I think they're the only two that I would really like from those games. You could probably do a Walsh. But my captain is coming out of Sunday, which is West Coast take on the Suns. I'm going to be putting my C on a Matty Rowell, who's been in amazing form. He's averaging 130 at this point in time, and I could see him having a big one against West Coast. With Harley Reid out of the side as well, I could see a big one. He's the one that I'm going to go with as captain if my VC fails. And then you've got Hawks take on Sydney, and well, Isaac Heaney is definitely the best choice there. So, they're my trades, they're my everything for the week. Thanks guys for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, like us on Facebook, Twitter, whatever you're listening to this on. Just like us on all those things. And I'll be back same time, same place next week. Thank you.